This video is about Intel Tiger Lake, the brand new architecture from Intel. There is no major changes inside. So Tiger Lake actually is an Ice Lake carbon copy. And the major changes you can see on this page actually. And there is actually two major changes. One is the manufacturing process, because Intel finally solved the issue with the 10 nanometer process, and they can go from 3.9 up to 5 gigahertz here. So Intel finally solved the issue, and next year there will be big competition against AMD in terms of architecture, because there is upcoming Golden Cove with a 40% IPC jump. The second upgrade from Ice Lake is actually the cache subsystem. And you can see here why. There is a L2 and L3 cache changes, and Intel changed the inclusive design because Intel is using L2 and L3 cache inclusive in opposite with the AMD Zen 2, because it's using L2 inclusive but non-inclusive for the L3 cache, also for the desktop Matis. So you can see here Intel moved to non-inclusive cache also for the L2, and using pretty huge L2 cache, 1.25 megabyte, and also pretty big L3 cache. Okay, and but you can see here there is some higher latency also. So I will repeat for people, they think that bigger L2 cache, bigger L3 cache, bigger is better. I will just say not always, because bigger cache is usually related to high latency, and high latency, it hurts your IPC a lot. So there is always some trade-off and some sweet spot which you need to hit for general purpose code, and especially for your target applications. But let's see on this latency graph. You can see here that, yeah, the latency looks good. There is no bigger issue, so it should be maybe some improvement for some code which prefers bigger L2 cache. So yeah, but let's go for the IPC, and you will be actually surprised. But look at this benchmark. It looks good for the Tiger Lake on the first look, but if you take into account also the frequency, which is here 4.8 gigahertz, you will actually see that if you calculate the IPC, the benchmark points per gigahertz, you will get only 11.52 points, which is actually only 6% above Coffee Lake refresh. And actually it's lower than Ice Lake. So Tiger Lake is hurt by maybe the new cache subsystem, or it cannot sustain those 4.8 gigahertz. And there is the same problem for the AMD Renoir. If you take a look here on the Ryzen 4800U, which is the 15-watt version, it shows only 37 points in compared to the desktop version, which is running 4.6 gigahertz. And yeah, Renoir is really doomed. Renoir shows almost 20% decrease in terms of IPC. I suspect that Renoir cannot run 4.2 gigahertz, even the single thread, in 15 watts TDP. So it's probably running maybe 3.8 gigahertz. But anyway, even if you recalculate to 3.8 gigahertz, you will get like a 90%. So yeah, Renoir has some problem with the IPC, even bigger than the Tiger Lake. And this is really bad. Especially, let's compare it to Android smartphones. And look at here the Snapdragon. Look at here the Snapdragon. Snapdragon is running only 3.1 gigahertz. You can see here 3.1 gigahertz Snapdragon in the plus version 865. And look at, it's almost on par with the Ryzen, guys. The laptop model of the Zen 2 is almost outperformed by smartphone, guys. And this is not the Apple, which is somewhere else, but this is like a regular Android smartphone. And so it's really bad. And we can see here also the ARM server CPU, the Graviton, which is based on the old 76, but it's kind of improved because it shows pretty nice IPC. It shows IPC 10% above Intel Coffee Lake refresh. So guys, it looks like the ARMS is starting to outperform x86 CPUs in terms of IPC. But take a look on the prediction of the Cortex-X1, which was actually unveiled this year. And the Cortex-X1 has a 30% IPC uplift in compared to Cortex A77, and at the frequency 3.1 gigahertz, it will provide 47 points, and 47 points is somewhere here, guys. 47 points is somewhere here. Yes, so next year, the Snapdragons and the Samsung Galaxy S30, they will get close to desktop class Ryzens. The 16-core Ryzen 3950 will be really attacked by the Android smartphone. And this is starting to be funny because if you look at it, the smartphones, they will outperform. If you today buy a new laptop with the Tiger Lake, Ice Lake, or the Ryzen Renoir, yeah, next year smartphone will outperform your laptop in the single thread, guys. This is a really serious situation for AMD and Intel, and especially if you look at the Apple A13, the performance is really super high, and you can see it's actually outperforming the 16-core Ryzen, which is running 4.7 gigahertz. It's really outperforming in the single thread. Already today, the chip which is running on 2.6 gigahertz, you can see here A13 running 2.65 gigahertz, is having 84% higher IPC in compared to 9900K. And this is the problem, because even Zen is really close, so it's similar, almost identical to Coffee Lake Refresh here in the spec 2006. So you can see even Zen 2 is outperformed by Apple A13 really massive way. And Renoir with a decreased IPC has an even bigger problem. It's like a more than double IPC. And actually, because Apple also released some new information about the A14, I put some prediction. The prediction for Apple A14 is according to Apple, because Apple released it should be 40% faster than Apple A12. I just added the score to here, and it shows this, it gives me this number actually, and this is the suggested frequency, which is really realistic in terms of 5 nanometer TSMC process. And look at here. The prediction for the IPC is like a more than double IPC than Intel Comet Lake, more than double IPC than the actual Zen 2, even more than like a even higher IPC than Intel than the AMD Renoir, and almost double IPC of the Intel Ice Lake. Guys, in terms of absolute performance in this graph, it's almost here. And if I give you the line here, I can draw the line. It will be somewhere here. This is the Apple A14 prediction. And Apple A14 will outperform literally every desktop. We don't know about the Zen 3 right now, the performance, but if the performance of the Zen 3 should be 15% higher and should have maybe reach 5 GHz, it should be somewhere here actually. So yeah, Zen 3 will be fighting and maybe even slower in a desktop, of course, than iPhone 12. And because Apple can, in the ARM MacBooks, can actually clock it to 3 GHz maybe, the A14X or M, whatever they call the 8-core variant. Yeah, it will be probably somewhere here. It will probably reach some even higher performance. So it's really bad. You can see in the laptop, Apple will outperform actually also the desktops. The MacBook based on ARM Apple Silicon will outperform every 8-core desktop PC, guys. This is like starting to be really bad situation for the x86. Yeah, let's see the numbers with the IPC. Let's put into the summon graph, and we will see here. This is actually this numbers is put into this graph, and yeah, you can see it's really like Apple is providing like a double performance per gigahertz. It's really bad, and we can compare. It's pretty interesting, this area actually, because this area is kind of desktop class. You can see here, this is the Coffee Lake refresh, and Comet Lake, which is a little bit faster, but there is also Zen 2 here. Ice Lake is pretty nice uplift here, and Tiger Lake shows literally decreased IPC. Renoir, probably because lower frequency also, but we have to not forget that the Renoir has a much smaller L3 cache, because it has only 8 megabytes in compared to 32 megabytes for the Matisse. So could be also the L3 cache problem here. But look at the ARMs here. The ARMs, Cortex A77, even the N1 Neoverse are actually outperforming x86 CPUs. And only Ice Lake is kind of faster in terms of IPC here. And the new A78 is faster than the Ice Lake. And Cortex X1, which is the high performance version, is really yeah, this is really problem for x86 here, because if the Zen 3 should bring 15% IPC, the 15% IPC should be somewhere here, should be somewhere on the level of the Ice Lake. I believe that actually Zen 3 will be stronger, It's a new design. I think it will be 6 wide in terms of floating point, so it will be above Comet Lake and Tiger Lake. But still, look at here. This Cortex X1 is like a one more generation in terms of IPC faster. So yeah, those arms are super fast, and the IPC of the Intel of the Apple chips, it's like a really ludicrous. It's like it's like a I don't know. This is actually the answer why Apple is moving to their own silicon, because their own silicon is like a their own silicon is 1, 2, 3 generations, at least 3 generations of CPU architecture ahead of anybody else, actually. 1, 2, 3, and in compared to x86, probably 4 generations, and 4 generations in compared to Zen 3, guys. So this is really serious situation, and if somebody actually, I also didn't understand why actually Apple is moving to their own silicon until I use the IPC recalculation, and the performance per clock shows that Apple has the best architecture on the world. Actually, there is no faster CPU in terms of IPC. The IPC is totally stellar here, and even the A12 Vortex here, which is in the development kit and in some new iPads. Guys, this is IPC of the A12. It's like still really like a 3 generations above Intel, because when the Intel Golden Cove should come, and it should be 40% above Coffee Lake refresh here. So Coffee Lake refresh, I have another graph I will show you actually, and it's normalized to the Coffee Lake refresh. This last so this graph is this last numbers. This is normalized to 9900K. So this is 100% here. This is 100%. It starts here, and you can see. So the Golden Cove should be 40% above, somewhere here, this range, and we can see this range is actually Apple A11 and Cortex X1. So guys, this is really bad situation, because Cortex X1 was released this year, and in silicon should be end of this year, the Snapdragon maybe January next year, so it's probably starting the production on 5 nanometers. And this is a problem, because they already have an IPC of Intel Golden Cove and Matisse, and yeah, so this should be Zen 3, should be somewhere here, I guess 20% above in terms of IPC, and Zen 4 will be maybe 10%, 15% above, so this should be somewhere here. So Zen 4, yeah, this is problem, because Zen 4 will be fighting with the Golden Cove, yes, but ARM Cortex X1 has the same IPC already this year. So this is kind of problem, and you can see A12, it's like a one more generation more advanced than those CPUs, which would Golden Cove and Zen 4 should come next year. Let's take a look on the floating point results, because those are also important for some people which are running some floating point heavy workloads. So actually this is the original picture, and I took the numbers, and I made the same, actually, the graph here, and it's maybe better to move for already unified to 9900K, and you can see. So you can see here the baseline is 9900K. This is 100%, and you can see here that Apple A13, it doesn't reach that much IPC. It actually shows lower IPC instead of 84% above. Coffee Lake refresh is only 64%. So yes, x86 CPUs are kind of more floating point heavy, and this is maybe because the smartphones, they are not probably asking so much floating point performance for the workloads they are supposed to run. But even that, it's still pretty impressive. 64% IPC in the floating point. Yeah, it's still huge, because I suggest that Zen 3 will have 6 floating point units and supporting also AVX 512. It's like a 199%, I'm sure. It was kind of confirmed by the Forrest Norot, because he suggests that with the Zen 3 they can attack 100% of the market for the servers, which includes also the HPC, and HPC was about AVX 512. So it's somehow confirmed that the Zen 3 will have a AVX 512 support. My expectation is Zen 3 will have a 256-bit wide vectors, but there will be 6 floating point units actually to support, and Zen 4 will bring a wider floating point units, 512-bit wide on 5 nanometers. It's expected for the 5 nanometers there will be more room, more transistors to spend for wider floating point units, and it will bring probably higher IPC in the floating point somewhere here. But still, it will be outperformed by Apple A14, guys, and Apple X1. And don't forget that next year is coming X2, new Matterhorn, which will be based on the SVE. For the SVE is the seamed vectors in new instructions, which supports up to 2048-bit wide floating point units. Of course, in the hardware they will support 256-bit wide, but again, X1 is only 128-bit wide neon, and they will jump from 4 floating points 128-bit. It's kind of Zen 1. They will jump to 4 floating point units 256-bit wide, and this is huge jump actually. And so you can see the ARMs are really strong also in the floating point computing, and the servers will be under big attack from the ARMs, and you can see why actually NVIDIA is approaching and buying actually the ARM, because new Zeus platform, the Neoverse N2, because this is N1. Actually, this year we are expecting N2, Neoverse N2, based on the X1, which will use SVE vectors already this year. And in the floating point, it will be probably somewhere here. This is big problem for x86 actually. The Zeus platform will be somewhere here, and it will outperform Zen 3 and Zen 4 probably. And that's why NVIDIA approach and buys the ARM, because it's already better, and they actually have a really aggressive schedule, and they actually plan with the X2, with the Matterhorn, increase the IPC 30% every year. And this is super aggressive, and this is really huge, because AMD suggests 15% every 1.5 year, and ARM is running 30% every year, which is it's like a 3 times faster development. And they are already showing better numbers. And if we take a look actually on the schedule right now, we can just briefly talk about it, because right now 2020 we are here. So next year will be released a Matterhorn, which is completely new architecture, brand new architecture from France. And next year will be brand new architecture, Nuvia Phoenix, with incredible IPC, probably X8 LAUs, plus also SVE2, the same like the ARM. The ARM will accelerate a lot of the floating point because the SVE2 is a big enabler in the matrix multiplication also. So the brand new Nuvia, brand new Matterhorn here. And also next year, brand new Apple A14. And I suggest it will be, of course, SVE2, ARM v9, new instruction set, but my suggestion is it will be also SVE8, because Apple do major architecture update after 4 years. It happened with the 4 LAUs, they jumped to 6 LAUs actually, with the 811 Monsoon here after 4 years. I would expect that another 4 year they will do another. They will have a major redesign since Apple A15. So next year we have a Nuvia, Apple A15, and also Matterhorn. 3 major redesign, 3 actually brand new architectures for ARM. This is a huge. This is absolutely perfect next year, and also Golden Cove is coming next year as a. It was delayed, of course. So actually we are expecting also probably Zen 4, which is a major upgrade of brand new architecture of Zen 3. So actually next year is absolutely perfect. We expect 5 new architectures, and 4 of them are major, brand new, much wider designs. So next year is absolutely awesome. And yeah, and this year we have a new architecture, Zen 3, and yeah, really interesting. So I hope you like this video, and yeah, talk to you next time.